Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're back in Borderlands and we're going to be making a Rafa build. It's first ever Rafa build on the channel. As you can probably tell looking at the footage that I'm playing, we're absolutely decimating pretty much every boss that we run across. I know you're seeing Ultimate Vault Hunter rank 1, but believe me, this can absolutely decimate Ultimate Vault Hunter rank 5. I just haven't gotten there with Rafa. Surprisingly, no one was really playing its green tree, so I decided to play melee and this is the build. What we're simply doing is stacking a ton of corrosion damage with a combination of different mods that give us extra attacks, extra damage, some grenades for extra damage increasers, and stacking just a ton of gun damage to give us melee damage, and of course the star of the show, the Groundbreaker passive, to just give us a ton of extra damage whenever we're dealing any form of non-melee damage. Seeing that he does a ton of corrosion damage, we end up just getting tons of free damage, very similar to the Amon build I made the other day, and you just end up just destroying bosses and enemies in a couple of seconds. A lot of you want to see some Rafa melee, so let's go over the build. Alright, now that you guys have a better idea of how the build works or what it's for, let's go over the different parts so you guys have a better idea of how to play it. So first things first, Midnight Oil. This is going to give you basically corrosion based damage every time you're in the phase. So for every second you're in, you're going to continue to get more and more of it, and this can stack up to 50%, giving you a ton of corrosion damage. The next thing we're going to be using is called Dial In. Whenever you do any form of damage with your melee, you're going to get a stacking chance to continuously crit, you will inevitably crit. That's the purpose of that. So you want 5 points in this, and then we grab 1 in this one. This one is just going to give us, whenever you crit, you get a portion of that health, and since we hit really hard, you only need 1 point so that it'll fully heal you up. So that's the idea for that. We're also taking Altered Cabron. What this does is whenever you kill an enemy while Arc Knives are active, you restore a portion of your health, and then you deal corrosive damage with all attacks and gain increased move speed whenever you gain any form of health. So you're just going to move faster and start killing things. The last thing in the first starting area is Diamond Hand. You deal melee damage. Dealing melee damage grant Rafa a stack of Diamond Hands, and that's going to increase your gun damage. Once you deal any form of gun damage, you start to decay the stacks. This can stack up to 200%, which means if you got the Specialization, which we're going to go over in just a second, Bare Arms, this is going to give you 50% of gun damage increases, which means this is 100% damage increase on your melee damage. It is mandatory. One important bit of context that you need to understand: Firework Shield is super popular right now. Do not use a Firework Shield. Whenever the barrage goes out, or anything that has a barrage element tied to it, the actual missiles will trigger gun damage and you will lose your stack. So do not use a barrage shield with this build. Moving over to the second section, we have Collaborate Ignition. This is an overdrive skill. You're in overdrive when you're in your melee form, by the way. Rafa deals bonus damage with all skills and ordnance in the element of his current gun while overdrive is active. Now coming over to our inventory, we're going to take a look at something. I'm using a complex root. I really love this gun. I use this for a lot of different builds, but this one has corrosion damage on it, and this is something I think a lot of builds actually forget to neglect to mention. We run around with this actively on because this is going to give us extra corrosion based damage on this skill. So make sure that when you're running around, you don't necessarily have to have a corrosion weapon, but whatever weapon you want to get extra elemental damage from. Thinking that we are stacking a ton of corrosion, this is just going to add more to it, so that's why we use it. So that's important context. Next, we're going to be using Synergia. Whenever Rafa deals ordnance damage, he also deals increased gun and melee damage, and this effects can stack up to 10 times. And seeing that half of that gun damage will go to melee damage, it is important that we proc some form of ordnance to be able to do so. So how we do this is by booming business. Whenever Rafa critically hits enemy, which we will inevitably crit, he gains a chance to spawn a free grenade. If Rafa has a grenade equipped, spawn a grenade based on that. Now here is something that's super important. There's something really big context here. First off, we want a grenade that spawns multiple grenades, because when multiple grenades hit multiple targets, each instance of damage, including when it hits you, will proc that effect. The thing that I would highly recommend, is go to level 1 and get a grenade that is level 1 that has order, or low level, I don't know, level 20. I don't know what characters you may have, but go farm a grenade that has this. Sometimes in my footage I may show it, blows me up because this does a ton of damage. Sometimes you will crit an enemy. This build will almost always one-shot most like trash mobs unless we're not built up, and even bosses, as you saw in the intro, we blow through them. The crit will proc, and then the grenades will drop to your feet, and since there's no one there and it drops right on top of you, it will just blow you up and kill you. It's weird that they have it set in the melee tree, but it doesn't functionally function well. Like, it doesn't function well for something in the melee tree. But I mean, melee is kind of scuffed in this game in general, but nonetheless, just go with a level 1 grenade. You're only using the grenade not for damage, you're using it to give you this buff, so use a level 1. Finally, we're going to get El Diabloto. This has a portion of incendiary damage, also deals bonus incendiary damage. You can just get 50% incendiary damage. And then finally, we're going to be using Infernal Protocol as our final thing. While you have your Arc Knives active, your exosuit is going to store that damage dealt to him, and then it's going to deal damage around him, which isn't really that important. But whenever you deal any form of melee damage, you're going to get incendiary damage on top of that. And a portion of that damage is also going to be dealt to enemies that are marked. So whenever you use your Blade Fury, you're going to consume all that stored damage, and it's going to hit the enemy based on a portion of that stored damage, and it's going to give you some health back. And this is part of the reason why the damage is kind of high on this build. I'm going to give a little bit more context, but generally speaking, you shouldn't die to this. There's plenty of other threats that you're going to die to, but that's Infernal Protocol. And then on the right side, we're going to be grabbing this one. This one's going to give us increased corrosive damage with his action skills active. The longer you have it active, the greater the bonus. Very similar to this to some degree, honestly. And then we have this one, which is going to give us increased action skill damage. Pretty standard, straightforward. I feel like this tree is very straightforward on what you want to pick for a melee build, so that's that. To his red tree, I know I tried to stay away from the red tree as much as possible, but there's some good stuff here. Gun damage, we get 12.5% damage to our melee, and then we grab this one, and this is going to be our sustaining tool. Whenever you do any crit hits, which we inevitably will do, you gain some action skill duration restored. I mean, this is a no-brainer. This one feels like something you have to do in all his builds because it's just too good. 15% every 4 seconds is kind of bonkers. So yeah, that's his skills. Let's go over his items because these are very important. As I said a second ago, we're using a complex root. You don't have to use a complex root. Just use something with some form of element, and maybe even have some other things that do some type of elemental stuff. That's super important. On our rep kit, we're going to be using triple bypass with tank on it to use for the damage reduction. You can use other things if you feel like you need damage. I don't think you need damage for this build. I haven't really seen the indication that damage is a problem. I know a lot of the footage was in Ultimate Vault Hunter Rank 1, but it really doesn't matter. For our class mod, we're going to be using All Out Buster. You can get this from Orego guy. We're actually not using this for any of the effect. We're actually only using it because it guarantees a roll for one of the skills, and the skill is guaranteeing is this one here, the blue skill called Per My Last. This skill is weirdly broken, and for those who are wondering, I probably said something in the intro maybe in regards to not using any snapshotting. Basically right now, there's like I'm gonna call it a bug, where this skill right here, if you have a mod that has this built in, will basically give you a ton of extra bonuses. And then whenever you take it off and swap to this mod, and you have 5 points invested into this one, it will overdrive, like it will keep multiplying it to a point where it's like 250% or more, and you just go around just blowing every boss up. I don't mind pointing out bugs, but I don't really like doing that in build videos because I just don't think that's good for longevity, because it's going to get patched. Long story short, inherently in terms of like raw damage increases, this skill is still good. That's why we're using it. We're only using it because this skill is just a very good skill. You have a 25% chance when you have 5 invested into it to double your damage, and that's why we're using it. So ideally get a 5 if you can, but for now, yeah, that's what we're using. For our shield, we're using the Timekeeper's new shield. I'm convinced that damage reduction doesn't work in this game, at least for certain things. I'm pretty sure barrels will still deal full damage to you. I'm not 100% on that, but I'm pretty sure it does. But anyway, what this does is it's going to give you HP regeneration, damage reduction, and it's going to give you maximum HP regeneration, and you're going to lose a shield though. So I don't know if this has been worth it, if I'm being completely honest, but for the most part, that's what you want to use. You could, in theory, go with a heavyweight. Do I have a heavyweight on me? No, don't use firework. I don't have a heavyweight on me, but you could, in theory, do a heavyweight. And then for our enhancement, I got something for Jacobs because I'm using my Jacobs sniper rifle. But really, all that matters is having gun damage, because a portion of that goes to your benefits, and then we put you know, our firmware on it. And then for our firmware, real big fists. I think you want 3 in this one, and then 2 in action fist, so you get that extra melee damage. Pretty straightforward. We haven't finished it, but that's pretty straightforward on what we're doing with this. For our specialization, we're grabbing 20 in runner because we want bare arms. We talked about this earlier. This is going to give us half of our gun damage as actual damage. And then we're going to get groundbreaker. This is our bread and butter. It will store a portion of the damage that we deal over the course of 5 seconds, and then when we use melee damage, we're going to just basically use that damage. And this is how our damage keeps stacking crazy whenever you see us like hit a boss and then we crit them, and it gives a ton of different statuses on it. This keeps compounding it, and it goes crazy and crazy and crazy and crazy. And that's basically what's happening with it, but you have a little short window to use it. We grabbed 10 in sharpshooter purely to get daredevil to get 1 point. Now with caffeine, this will help with our cooldown, because we will go down. It's inevitable, unfortunately. You will go down when you're fighting, because you will punch a barrel and it will kill you. And then we go survivor, 10 in survivor, and we get bullets are scared of me. Again, it's allegedly supposed to give us damage reduction based on the fullness of our health and shield. Since our health is typically max, we're supposed to get 30% damage reduction. I have all 3s active, and I still take a ton of damage at times. I don't know if DR works, but that's what I'm using it for. A lot of stuff is buggy in this game, if I'm being honest. So yeah. Anyway, guys, that's gonna be it for this video. I don't really know if I'm gonna do a follow-up for this video, simply because I can already kill everything in the game with this, and I don't really see a logical reason to change. Even if they nerf some of the things, like they're gonna nerf the snapshotting thing you're seeing in a lot of other videos. I didn't take advantage of that, so it doesn't really matter. I don't really think there's much more I can do other than just like kind of min max and get like maybe a few more like defense stuff, and you know, make my shield a little bit better, some affixes here and there. But for the most part, we're pretty much done with this build. It's as strong as it's gonna realistically get. Thank you guys so much for watching. As I said, probably an intro, make sure to go ahead and subscribe to the channel. It actually helps me more than you think, so make sure to subscribe. We're really trying to hit 50k this year. Would really appreciate it if you guys can help me with that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video very soon.